Welcome back.
Welcome to Decision Space, the only show to take place right here in the space between the turns in your favorite games. I'm Paul Salomon.
I'm Jake Friedman.
And I'm Brendan Hansen.
And this is the podcast about decisions in games.
And on today's episode, Hidden Gem Associations. We're welcoming back Paul Salomon, who we are so excited to have back on the show. And we have a special game episode of sorts in which we are going to all talk about some hidden gems that we've identified. And then we're going to challenge one another live on the air to guess what the associating factor, what binds them all together. So the episode's going to be a little bit of a hidden game show and a nice overview of some games we think are really cool that maybe you don't know about.
Awesome. And before we get into this week's episode, really quick housekeeping. First up, we want to announce the second Decision Space Jam. Space Jam number 2 is now live. So you can go to decisionspacepodcast.com to see the rules of this design jam. So the way this works is we encourage anybody who wants to participate to create a game following a certain set of criteria and submit it. And then we'll play test those games in our Discord as a community. Yeah, we're not committing to playing all of them this time. But if you submit, we'll encourage you to review 3 games, and then you'll get your game reviewed at least 3 times as well. That's what we'll commit to.
This time it involves cards. A game playing format after my own heart.
Is it only cards? Is that the restriction? Only cards?
It's an 18 card maximum.
Okay. I saw this coming.
Yeah. So again, we're trying to keep it restrained, small, to make it more accessible to more folks. So
conducive to playtesting, that sort of thing.
That's the gist.
Superb. I had a really fun playtest night the other night. I played, my friend Jake had a great game, loved it, and played a little game that I'm working on. And
not this Jake.
Oh yeah, this guy right here. Really fun, and I am eager to get into the episode. But before we do we want to read a review?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I'm gonna take the honors if you don't mind.
Oh, we'd love it, Paul. Thank you.
Okay, this one, I don't know where it was posted. Maybe one of you guys knows. Apple Podcast.
That's usually where we find them.
Fabulous. And this one is from Petrichor 2012, who either loves the game Petrichor or loves the smell of rain. And the title here is Wonderful Podcast, 5 stars. I've been listening to board game podcasts for a few years, and many of them have come and gone. Since I've discovered them a few months ago, Decision Space quickly rose to be one of my favorites in the space. Pun intended? I love how they balance classic games rather than just focusing on only the quote-unquote new hotness. Here's hoping for some more Knizia dance breaks in the near future.
Wow.
I don't want to spoil anything, but we may or may not get time for that today.
Wow. Professionally done. Thanks so much, Paul, for reading, and thanks, Petrichor, for the review. As always, it means a ton to us and really helps us get our show discovered by more folks. So appreciate it. All right, guys, let's get into the episode. All right, so here we are in the main topic, and I'm up first. So once again, the way this works, I'll share 3 hidden gems and then ask Paul and Brendan to try and find the hidden connection between the 3. And I'll start up with Crossing Oceans, a 2022 design by Mac Gertz of Concordia fame. So one thing that I think is so interesting about this game is kind of its design pedigree and history. So Matt Gertz, famous for rondels in games. Some of his big earlier hits like Antica 2 and Navigador are games that are like pure rondel games. You have a rondel on the board that will control all the actions you take. You'll move your pawn forward a certain number of spaces, and it forces some really interesting pre-planning. Then Gertz kind of eschewed that for the novel hand management kind of rondel function that we have in his game Concordia, which has all the actions that you might find on a rondel as cards, and then one card allows you to pick up all those cards again. So that was kind of a board game using that mechanism. Then he transitioned from Concordia to a game called Transatlantic, which similarly had the Concordia hand management system, but kind of took away the board part of that game for like a pure card game. Finally, we get to Crossing Oceans, which is the redevelopment of Transatlantic, but instead of the card game, like pure cards, they've Gertz has inserted a board back into the game, and he's taken away the hand management rondel for a pure rondel again. So it's kind of like Gertz's design coming full circle.
Like a rondel.
There it is. And so even though it's like, it's just funny, right? It's like at this point, like once you've changed out all the parts of a car, is it still that same old car or a brand new car? Right. And that's basically what you have with Crossing Oceans. It's like his old school pure rondel game, but created in 2022 after, kind of trying out all the different components of the game.
What are we doing in this thing? We're crossing oceans.
Yeah, we're crossing oceans. So basically, the main engine of the game is collecting different steamships. So the rondel is actions like purchase steamships, sail the steamships, which generates you money in a variety of ways, carrying passengers, shipping cargo, etc. So it's really a interesting like efficiency game where you're just trying to make as much money, spend the money efficiently. You have a moving market of cards. You have a deck that is ordered, so more expensive boats are coming out over the course of the game, getting shifted down until you run out of boats, and then you basically score for a multiplier for each like different colored boat you have. You collect a flag of that color, and you'll multiply that times the number of boats that you bought, basically. Yeah, so that's pretty much the game. A really interesting efficiency puzzle that kind of really evokes his old school stuff. I love the rondel here, and I love the way the rondel mechanism just has such obvious trade-offs, right? I want this action, but if I do, I'll forego this other action that I need to take next turn, and then I won't be able to do it. And kind of how you pick your way across that. It's fantastic, and I feel like it has something that's gone out of fashion, and it's just interesting to see it come back. So I think this is one that could easily be overlooked and is definitely worth your time, perhaps particularly if you're interested in the theme of kind of the early 1900 steamship.
And who isn't?
Yeah, right. It comes with a whole book of history on these ships. So clearly a subject matter. It doesn't really matter to me, but that Matt Gertz himself is passionate about. So I think there's something there that even beyond what I appreciated it, if you like that kind of thing. So
2 quick questions before you go on. One,
great.
Does this have the ships rusting out and getting old like Transatlantic does?
Yeah, so basically there's like different shipping lanes in the different oceans. So I think there are a variable number of slots in each one, but if all the slots are full, when you deploy a ship into that space, it kicks out the oldest ship. And that can also lead to really interesting trade-offs because you're trying to you have to have coal on the ships in order to use them to generate money. So you want to have coal on your ships, but you also don't want your ship to get kicked off while it has coal still on it. So that's like a really interesting timing trade-off.
Nice and thematic. I'm just trying to see if there's any through lines, getting ready for the...
Well, that's right. I'm already wondering,
okay.
Where's it going to go? Yeah.
Okay.
I'm asking probing questions.
Yeah.
My second question was, do you like it more than Transatlantic? But then, yeah.
I really like Transatlantic, and I'm one of the few people that actually prefer it to Concordia.
Yeah.
Which I think is just because it feels like a more distilled version of that hand management game.
Yeah.
I think that Transatlantic has its own interesting thing where like a few years after release, Gertz just like posted on Board Game Geek, like, these are the new rules you should play my game by. So he was like kind of continually working on it. And I think the biggest problem with it originally is the scoring was really convoluted, and the new rules kind of streamlined that, but it's just kind of created a mess. And I think I kind of enjoy the hand management of Transatlantic a lot, but I think Crossing Ocean is definitely the more complete game, is going to be best for most people. And it really simplifies the scoring in a super satisfying way that makes it enjoyable to like do the efficiency puzzle throughout the game.
Curious.
I want to let you get to the next one here, but I also just want to say the note you made about how the hand management is sort of like a variable rondel. I'd never made that connection before, and I think that's super interesting. And it reminds me of some other games that I think do similar sorts of things. So that's cool.
All right. Well, I'll go to my next game, Aquasphere, a 2014 game by Stefan Feld. Longtime listeners of this podcast know that Stefan Feld is one of, if not my favorite designers. So Hidden Gems is always a good opportunity to plug one of the lesser known Stefan Feld games in my collection. And I think Aquasphere is a really great one that's worth checking out. One of the cool things about Aquasphere is it's published by Hall Games that recently put out Bonfire, kind of a recently popular Feld game that got a lot of traction with a lot of folks. And there's a lot of similarities between these two designs. So I think that if you're somebody who really enjoyed Bonfire more recently, then you especially would do yourself well by checking out Aquasphere, which can be had very cheap on the secondary market today. So in Aquasphere, you basically play as a scientist and you'll be programming robots. It's a kind of a programming game, but not in the way that we think of a programming game today.
It's not Robo
It's
Rally.
not Robo Rally. It's like you have to kind of like preset actions.
Okay.
But basically,
Sounds like programming.
you're in like an underwater, yeah, but like only one at a time.
Okay.
Anyway, so you're in like an underwater lab, and you can kind of like picture like the big like sphincter doors or whatever, like that segment off the spaces. So you'll move around this circular board that's like modular, so it'll be different each time you put it together.
Okay.
And there's like each time you go through one of the passages, it costs us a variable amount of time. So like moving to the right might cost 3 time, where like moving to the left chamber costs 0 time. And that's your big resource that's kind of causing you to try and be efficient over the game is time. And there's various ways to earn it. It's a classic Feld point salad game. So basically everything you're doing over the course of the game earns you points. And then there's some like really weird thematic twists that you don't typically see in Feld games, which is what makes me reminded most of Bonfire. Not necessarily the mechanism or decision space, but just that like in this game, one of the things you'll be doing is like fighting octopods, which will be like invading the ship. And then octopods, like as you defeat them, they score like for triangular scoring. So it's like the most like thematic Euro mechanism ever, where it's like defeat 1, you get like 1 point. But if you defeat 3 in one action, you'll get 6 points or whatever it is. So I'll just share like a couple of cool mechanisms that are going on here, and then we'll go on to my next one. But one thing that I think is really novel and neat is the programming space, which I mentioned before. So you basically will be programming these bots, which gives you more flexibility. So when you program a bot, you basically take one from your common supply and put it onto your personal board in like one of the 6 different actions in the game. And then as you move through the ship, there's like one of the spaces that you can occupy within one of like the 6 rooms on the board is the programming board. So then when you take that action, it enables you to have more flexibility on that turn because you could deploy any of your program bots to use that action. The other interesting thing is like when you move to a space, you'll like move your actual worker that represents you on the board, but then you'll put a bot into the center of the board, which is like what you use to like take the action, to like program the action. And then any other bot that was there gets bumped down into like a storage bay. And then those storage bays are like area control, where you're trying to like get majorities in various ones. There's also submarines that you can unlock to gain more time on your turn. So all kinds of crazy different stuff going on, and some really interesting things that's very unlike mechanisms that you've seen in other Feld games, while still at the end of the day being like a very much an efficiency puzzle point salad game. And that is Aquasphere, an odd duck in Feld's catalog and worth checking out.
That's neat. I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a time track in this game, or is it a resource you collect and then spend?
Yeah, it's a resource. It might as well be money. Yeah, it's like I go to this action, it just gives me like 6 time tokens, and I can spend them. Yeah,
I'm seeing some connections already.
Okay.
I'm curious where the third one's going to be.
All right.
Yeah.
Brendan, any questions at this time?
I think I'm going to hold my questions for the third game.
Okay.
All right.
He doesn't want to tip his cap.
Yeah.
All right. And so the last of my hidden gem games is Boonlake, a 2021 design by Alexander Pfister, who is probably most widely known for Great Western
Broom
Trail.
Service.
But on this podcast, our favorite is Broom Service.
For me, it's Isle of Skye.
Another great one.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. So Pfister is kind of a interesting designer where I feel kind of polarized on some of his designs, in that some like Broom Service and Isle of Skye I really love. Others like Great Western Trail I'm way lower on than it seems like the hobby as a whole. So I was kind of thinking like maybe I just more prefer his lighter designs, until I tried Boonlake, which is like a very heavy strategy Euro game has kind of the core mechanism of like I don't know how to describe this without like using the word colonization, but it's like an open map with spaces that you can like put buildings on, upgrade those buildings, and you're like trying to build your own little community on the board, all what you might do in something like Settlers of Catan, right? Like going onto different resources, and here you'll score points differently. It's not called colonization in this game because it's kind of like ham-fistedly stepped around by saying like this is like actually a future world, and is so there's like, even though everything looks like kind of like an open empty terrain, there's like some like circuit tree on the player board that lets you know that's like, no, don't worry, we're not colonizing, we're actually just like doing like this stuff in like some kind of like
future suburbs,
future place where there's no people around to be displaced. So anyway, it's kind of probably like one of my favorite games I've played in that tradition of like putting buildings on the board, upgrading those buildings, and scoring points based on how well you're able to do that. A couple of interesting mechanisms of note in this game is it has a really novel action selection mechanism. I think it kind of has a river time track in two ways. So in the action selection mechanism works that way in that the action selection board is a series of like 7 tiles, and so when a player chooses an action, they take that tile and slide it to the bottom, pushing up the other tiles. And the higher the tile is, the further you get to move your ship down the river that like cross-sects the board and is actually the end of game timer. Like when a boat gets to the end of the river track, that will be the end of the game. So if I take from the action from the very top of the action board, that gives me up to 4 spaces of movement. And so that creates really great trade-offs in a, like, I want to take the action that's like most efficient to where I'm at in the game, but I also want to move my ship, because the further you get down the river, the better the resources that you collect by the space that you land on. By the same token, when you're moving that ship, you always want to go as far as you can, because you want to make sure you're collecting the best resources towards the end of that track, along with other people, rather than letting the person that's furthest ahead pushing the end game also get more stuff. But sometimes you don't have to move all that distance, and there might be a resource or some benefit that you really need, shorter than your maximum movement. So that creates like a really interesting trade-off two ways when you're doing the action selection mechanism of the game. The biggest criticism with Boonlake is that it goes a little bit long, and that's been true in my experience playing this. Probably like 3 players could be like a 2-hour game. At 4 players, you might be looking at 3 hours even. I've heard that there's an expansion for this game called Artifacts that I've heard is like kind of like the Terraforming Mars Prelude expansion of this, where it like really cuts down the playtime significantly. I haven't tried that out yet, but I'd like to in my next play of this if I get the chance. So that's Boonlake, kind of, I think, a slightly under the radar Fister release, but actually one that has a ton going for it in terms of like interesting decisions, cool card play, and then paired with like a fun kind of board expansion building up, which always leaves me kind of feeling satisfied at the end of the game. I'm like, look at all this stuff that I've done. It has that good sense of progression. So that's Boonlake.
The action selection sounds a little bit like Arc Nova in the way that it's like when it's up high, obviously it moves you more, but is it a stronger action?
Good clarification. So the big distinction there is that it's like a shared board for everybody. So like so in Arc Nova you have your own. Here, if I take this top action, it goes to the bottom for everybody else. So the only thing that makes it better is like how far you can move your boat, I believe.
Okay.
There might be some other small thing I'm trying to remember.
That action selection like track is in Kraftwagen as well. Kraftwagen. I don't know if you guys have played that. Cool game from Matthias Kramer. One to check out. Kraftwagen, yeah, they just came out with a new edition. Very cool kind of time track game. Well, Brendan, what are you thinking here?
There's my 3 games. Anything jumping out?
I was pretty certain Jake was just spending a lot of time talking about all these different mechanisms, laying breadcrumbs throughout, and then I had an aha moment. Paul, I want to know what you think. I don't know. You have a guess? I have a guess.
I have like a lot of potential ones, and obviously when we talk about games, there's going to be tons of commonality, right? These are Euro games. They have points, I think the first thing that jumps out at me is these are water games.
Yes, and all of them have a body of water name of some way, shape, or form in their name, right? Except for
In their name.
Aquasphere, but it's close enough.
Well, kind of, sure. And then I had another connection, which is that all of these feature water vehicles.
Ooh.
Right? We have submarines, we have boats. Anything else stand out to you?
I think it's got to be the water theme. But is it that they have water-related names?
Well, I do want to just say the first two both had like this almost rondel action
some like circular.
to it, so I had to, but well, Jake, I think you better tell us.
Yeah, you guys got it right. It was just boat games, water games. I'd accept them all. It was the thematic connection. So
nice.
Okay, great.
Well done.
Let's go. I'm impressed.
All right, we're 1 for 1. Okay, guys. Well, it seems to be my time, and I have 3 tremendous games. I think relative to the Decisionauts, I skew a little lighter, but I know I have some interesting design pieces here. For new listeners, I am a game designer, so I look at games through that lens, and we'll see what you piece together in terms of the commonalities. And I do have some visuals for our Patreon folks who get to see the video. The first game I want to talk, I should say, a trend you will notice is that these games, as I go 1, 2, 3, will get a little bit longer. Okay, and so maybe a little heavier. They'll also go backwards in time.
Wow.
Towards some older designs. So our first one here is brand new, and that is Pirate Tales, Tails, from designer Whitney Lorraine, who is a recent friend of mine. She moved to St. Louis and is also co-designer of Charcuterie, which I just got, and is an awesome I Cut You Choose game. Pirate Tales is a set collection card game for 2 to 5 players, age 8 up, 15 to 30 minutes. And here's kind of the pitch in the rules. Just like pirates, squirrels lose about half the treasure they bury. In Pirate Tales, each player is a piratical squirrel hunting for nuts on a tropical island. Okay? So what's going on in this game, it is sort of a Biblios Coloretto variant. I know we talk a lot about Coloretto variants. I think Coloretto is one of the most spectacular designs of all time. And what's going on here is in the deck, you have a bunch of different sets of nut cards. And here I have the acorn cards. And there's a 0 and 2 1s and 2 2s and 2 3s and 2 5s and an 8 and a 12. And we'll talk about how those matter in a minute. But on your turn, in the deck, there's 2 nut sets per player, as well as some candies. And on your turn, you're going to place 3 cards. There's some islands out in the center of the board, 1 per player. And you're going to draw a card off the top and look at it and then choose where it goes. And it can go in front of you face down as a keeper that you will have at the end of the game. It can go face up on an island, or it can go face down on a different island. And so, like Coloretto, the islands are sort of building up, and I have some secret knowledge about what I've stashed away on these islands. And every turn, you're going to get 3 cards in these places, or, of course, you're going to make the choice to spend your whole turn claiming all the nuts from one of these islands and placing them face up in front of you to score. There are also these candies. The candies are 5 points each, which is a great value in the game. But if you eat too much candy, you get no points. So I think your first 2 are 5 points each, and then they're nothing after that. Or maybe if you have 3, they're nothing total. But here is the really interesting piece of the design, I think, apart from the little tweaks on Coloretto already, is again, I've talked about the numbers going from 0 to 12, and the scoring is this. If you only have 1 card of a set, of a nut type, you get no points. And if you have 2, you get the lower value. So if I have the 12 and the 0, I get no points. If you have 3, you get the middle value. And if you have 4 or more, then you get to score the highest. They could have written this rule another way, which I think is interesting, which is that you always lose your highest value nut unless you have 4 or more nuts.
And then you score it, yeah.
Which is a sort of more consistent, cohesive rule. But the thing that I really like here, again, apart from the Coloretto base, which I think is so solid, is that cards on these islands have really variable values to you and to other players in a unique way. which is to say that, I might be collecting acorns and see that you're collecting pecans or whatever. But also a 0 to me could be actually worth 4 points or 7 points or 9 points, depending on the other nuts that I have in my set and how many of them I have. So if I have, a 0, 1, and a 1, I'm scoring 1 point for that set. If I have a 1, 1, and a 12, I'm scoring 1 point for that set. But then if I grab a 0, now I'm scoring 12 points for that set. And whereas that 12 for you may be totally valueless in a very real way in the game. So that is Pirate Tales from Whitney Lorraine.
Sounds sweet. I want to play.
It is.
How many
and
suits
it's
are
a
there?
small box. There are
6?
probably 10 total
10
suits plus candies.
Okay. Interesting.
Because it might be a little bit different at 5 players, but I know it's 2 per player. Maybe there's 8 total nut suits plus candies. Not sure.
A different game we could play is try to name 8 types of nuts, but we won't do that right now.
Right. And if you've seen Best in Show, there is that guy, Harlan, I think, played by Christopher Guest, who goes on this, pecan nut, almond nut, cashew nut. He talks about nuts for a long time in that movie.
I'm always impressed by design that makes the 0, valuable in some instances.
Yeah, totally.
Our friend of the show, Jared, he always talks about his first time playing Art Robbery by Reiner Knizia. Has like the classic twist. They're trying to get points, but whoever has the fewest alibis at the end can't win. So there's like a 0 worth 2 alibis, and people are just like fighting hand over fist for this 0 card. I think it's just so clever when designs can make us care about something that they're also telling us is worth 0 points.
Absolutely. Yep. Cool. Ready for my second then?
Yeah. I need more context. I don't have any guesses yet.
Yeah. And there's not a ton of like wild stuff going on there. So, the range of possibilities might be a little low, but we'll see. The next one, I don't know if I would call it a hidden gem exactly. This is a pretty well-known design from 2005, designed by Bruno Faiduti and Alan R. Moon, who's of course known for designing the moon. But thematically, it is a hidden gem game in that this is Incan Gold, and you and the other players are questing through a temple a little bit together, trying to find gems, I think turquoise, onyx, and gold. This is a game I don't believe you've covered on the show, and I think is a truly incredible game design for its simplicity, its incredible fun, and some of the details I'll get into. I will tell you that I have played this game with new gamers, especially students, over and over and over and over and over again. It is never not a hit. People always want to buy this game, and unfortunately, it's a little bit hard to get. So 2005, Incan Gold. This is a press your luck card game for 3 to 8 players, ages 8 and up, and it takes about 20 to 40 minutes. In this game, you have a deck of cards, which is 50, and of course, I need my visual aids for our viewers. Here's Incan Gold. It's also known as Diamant, which is the French name, which just means diamond. And in that, there are 15 diamond cards, which are ranged from 1 to 17. And on a turn of this game, you'll go into the temple and reveal a card off the top of the deck. If it's a 6, or let's just say if it's a 7, and there are 3 players in the dungeon, then we'll split that up as fairly as we can. So we'll each get 2, but then there is a remainder of 1, which will be left on the card, sort of left in the tunnel of the of this temple that we're exploring. And then, of course, if we get 17, well, that's a huge amount. We'll all get some in front of us. But as a press your luck game, you don't get those gems until you choose to leave the temple. And so after each flip of cards, we'll all simultaneously decide whether to stay or go.
Best decision in the game.
Best decision, right?
Might be the only one.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It is, I would say, it is the only decision in the game. Yes, that's true. And a lot of immersive gameplay comes out of that. And of course, some Yomi, like zigging when people zag. The other thing, of course, that brings the press your luck is that there are 15 hazard cards in the deck, which is 3 each of 5 types: spiders, vipers, lava flows, some kind of weird looking zombie thing, cave-ins. And the first time you see one of those, it's just kind of a little bit spooky. But if you find another one of the exact same type, then everybody in the temple just drops all the stuff they had, they lose it, and they run out, and that ends the round. So you play 5 of these things. There are also 5 artifact cards, and you shuffle one of these in each round, and these are worth 5 points for the first 3 and 10 points for the next 2, with a little twist. If an artifact comes out, it cannot be split among the players. So you must leave by yourself in order to get an artifact card. So you can sort of bluff people and say, guys, don't go. I'm going out right now. And maybe they'll play along, maybe they won't. The other thing I should mention is that all of those remainder diamonds that piled up on those cards are split by all the players that leave. And so as they pile up, the temptation grows for me to leave. And the effect of that is that whoever is left in the temple, perhaps maybe down to themselves, gets to flip cards and maybe have it all for themselves, or just split among 2 players. So that's kind of the game. And I want to just point out some of the things that I think are incredible about this game. The first one is that the deck contents change over the course of the game in 2 ways. One I haven't mentioned. Obviously, these artifacts pile up and even become more valuable through the game. But also, if there's a bust in the round, like, for example, we found 2 spiders, one of those spiders is removed from the deck. And so the thing becomes safer, and the temptation to go deeper into this temple grows. And I think that is a really cool thing. But the other truly remarkable thing is that this game naturally self-balances for player count. Because when there's 8 of us, I don't want to get into the math here, but the remainders can be as high as 7 gems, right? And so when there's 8 of us in the temple, they pile up more on the cards, which means that people, if they want to extract value, want to leave earlier, which means that it still does get down to 3, 2, 1 person still in that temple vying for big gem finds. Okay, that is the incredible Incan Gold from 2005, Bruno Faiduti and Alan R. Moon.
The decision, too, to have the curses triggered just when you get the second is so good, because then the tension is just immediate, right? Sometimes you could see a version of this game where you had to get to 3 of the fire ants to really burn you. And I think the decision, it just makes it snappy. There's no time wasted getting to the good stuff.
And then if one of those spiders is removed and I reveal a spider in a subsequent round, there's only 1 card in the deck that can hit me.
And it always comes next.
Right, it's always the next. Yep.
So just so I understand the rules, if you leave the temple, you take all of the gems there.
Correct.
So if 2 people leave at the same time,
they split
them. So there's really the possibility for some like big time leaving the temple misses if there's 4 people there and 3 all go at once. It's like, correct. Dang it. Yeah.
Right.
That reminds me Paul, have you played Orongo by Ryan Knizia? It kind of reminds me a little bit of how that auction works at that game, where you can pass on the auction to take all the shells, which is what people are bidding. Right. But if multiple people all pass at once, then it's like, oh no, because you're splitting the pot. Yeah, a fun mechanism.
Okay, well, maybe you have some concepts here for the ties between those 2. I don't know. Maybe not.
Kind of. I don't know. I'm definitely not sure yet. We'll have to hear this third one.
Yeah, unsure.
All right, ready for the third then?
Let's do it, yeah.
The third, I told you they would get a little longer and more back in time. This is a game from 2009, but is really an implementation of a game from the 1900s. This is a game, cue it up, Jake. This is designed by the one and only living Dr. Rhino Kniz.
Dang, are you trying to trigger a dance break?
I am.
All right, let's hit it.
Let's go.
Boom.
Put your rhino horn up if you don't give a chit.
Love that. Okay. All right, that's great. So the mechanics of this game, really, for those that know Ra, and I think the Decision Not listeners will know Ra well, this is mechanically very much the same game. On your turn, you choose to pull a tile from a bag to grow this line of auctioning tiles, or you decide to invoke Ra, which triggers an auction. You have these sun tiles in front of you, which are very discrete bids that you can make. You can only win 3 in a round. And then you are set collecting. So again, the core mechanics here are identical. The differences are that this is a totally different set of tiles. And I am excited to share with you the connections and the differences. So, well, let me just tell you all of them first, and then I'll compare to Ra. So the big difference, perhaps, in selling point is that many of the tiles in Priests of Ra are two-sided. And so you have like the people tiles, which are like the Civ tiles, are blue on one side and yellow on the other, or green on one side and red on the other. And when you draw a tile out of the bag, you make a choice about which side to put it on that board. There are also priest tiles, and these sort of replace the god tiles. And when you win a priest tile off of an auction, you may use its effect to flip one of your tiles over. And so you have some power to control the things that you have. And even though I won a blue person tile, I may flip that over and make it a yellow tile, which is perhaps better for my set collection. We also have building tiles, which are, these are more like the Nile tiles that are sort of enduring and last from game to game, or from epoch to epoch. We have plague tiles, which are kind of the bad things that replace, what are they? Disasters, I think they're called. And then finally, we have pyramid tiles, which replace monuments. All right, so let's get into all the details here of the scoring, because
Can I say really
Yeah, go ahead.
quickly?
Yeah.
I just want to highlight for our listeners, the plague tile actually showed someone being hugged by Anubis. And
Yeah,
I
okay,
don't
so
want to be
that-
hugged by Anubis, that's for
So
sure.
if you, and it looks like this,
Yeah.
and that is like, I don't know, I can't
a
tell if it's like
sarcophagus,
that,
right?
or if
Yeah.
it's like, is it like this? You
I think
know,
it's
where
like
they're
that.
laying down.
That's more
Yeah.
suggestive for sure, the laying
Definitely.
down version.
Or laying down.
It was basically a
But I always
pharaoh
get
laying on their back with Anubis above them, embracing
Yeah.
them.
Mounting
That
them.
sounds plaguey. Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Well, hard to tell. Okay. So anyway, in Raw, there are civs in 5 colors, and at the end of the round, you get -5, 0. Sorry, your first one is essentially 5 points. Your second one is 0 points, and any after that are 5 points. You want different colors. In Priests of Ra, you have just 4 colors, and they score in 2 different ways. One is that for the different colors you have, you get 0, 0, 1, or 2 Ankh tokens. And those Ankh tokens will score 0, 5, 10, or 20 points at the end of the game, depending on if you have up to 4 Ankh tokens. So one of the things you want to do is get a lot of different colors of people. But in each round also, if you have 2 of the same color, you are eligible for this area majority. Whoever has the most red people tiles will get 5 points. And if you're tied, you get, I think, nothing. Could be wrong about that. That corresponds a little bit with the Pharaoh tiles from Ra, which are whoever has the most gets +5, and whoever has the least loses 2 points. But I find it interesting the way that the set collection and majority is layered on top of each other in Priests of Ra, relating to the same set of tiles, and flipping them over really impacts how those things are scored. In Ra, we have permanent tiles in the Nile, and you need Nile tiles and a flood tile. Here we have buildings, and you need 2 of those to sort of complete your building. They score 2 points per epoch, and then also 0, 0, 5, or 10 points per epoch, depending on how many different colors of building you have. So again, you have this wide set collection plus repeated in that same tile set, which is interesting. The disasters do not force you to lose tiles. They are sort of triangular negative points. So your first plague tile is -1 per round. Your second plague tile is -2 per round, and so on. Priests, as I said, are 2 points, and if you get 3 priests in a round, you can actually remove a plague. And then finally, the end game scoring, we have Ankhs, which are up to 20 points, and we have the pyramid tiles, which are just basic chambers, and there are colored chambers, which again are blue on one side, yellow on the other, or red-green, and you want to have sort of a pyramid of increasing heights. So if you have 6 pyramid tiles, that's 3 tall, that gets you 10 points. So 0, 5, 10, 20 again. And if you can get matching colors, 0, 0, 5, and 10. That's a lot of rules there for Priests of Ra. Before I go on to my comparisons, the things I love about this is any questions about what's going on in Priests of Ra? I know, Jake, you've played it.
Yeah, I played it and I love it. I think I have previously had Ra as my number 3 game of all time on one of my lists. I think it fell just outside my top 10 this last year. So I'm a huge fan of this system. And out of the two, I think Priests of Ra is the better design. I just kind of think about them as one thing. I think in my rankings, Ra just happens to be the one I own because I got the new 25th century, 20th
Yes.
century.
25th. Yeah.
25th century. And I will say two things. One is that my first interaction with 25th century was being on all of their advertisements and Kickstarters saying, if they don't add a tile set for Priests of Ra, they're fools. The type of thing I so hate now that I'm in the gaming industry. But eventually I made peace with 25th century games. And I will say, I do think down the road in this Ra line that 25th century is building, we will see.
Raw flip.
Yeah.
Yeah,
something.
there is something like just satisfying, like it having that choice when you flip a tile really does feel like it adds some fun agency to the game without
Yeah.
really slowing down the game at all.
And you still have
since
Sundays.
that's your whole turn
You
is
do still have Sundisk. That is
Okay.
the same.
yeah, it's all the same Octane mechanism.
He's amazing.
But yeah, so you pull out, your whole turn is pulling out a tile, and now you get to pick whether or not to flip it. Hardly slows the game down at all, but does add that satisfying agency to the game for sure.
We should all
Yeah,
be so
and-
lucky to design a game so good we can make it twice.
Totally.
Yeah, that's the dream, right?
And he's done all of his games many times.
This is true.
That's how you get to 700.
Some people like Razia even more, which is the card game version.
Yeah.
Which is the same game, I think.
Yeah.
I will say that I dream of a world in which there is a third tile set for this game, and I sometimes spend time thinking about the way in which that tile set could be constructed. And I'll make some comparisons, and maybe that will suggest what could come next. Compared to Ra, Priests of Ra has overall softer edges.
Yeah.
There are less negatives to be had, less punishing things, though you do still lose 5 points for having the lowest sun total at the end of the game. And as Jake said, there's way more agency here in each turn. Like in Ra, you just pull out a thing and you put it on, and that's basically almost a nothing turn, right? You're sort of punting there. Whereas here you have a real decision to make that matters and forces you to look around more at people's sports. A big thing here is that there's way less tile types, and tiles often will sort of overlap scoring mechanisms. So you have less variance in whether or not you find the tiles that you wanted, right? There's only actually 2 types of people tiles as opposed to 5. And there's only 2 types of building tiles as opposed to, I guess Nile is only 2. And then the monuments, there's like, well, I don't know, 1 million monuments, 8 different monuments in Ra. And here there's only really 3 types. So that increases your chance. I think that this is probably a better first Ra experience because of everything I'm saying. And again, if this is sort of like the little bit softer one, maybe there's an even more punishing version of Ra that hardcore, I think it might even be more appealing to Decision Not listeners. Who's to say?
Thieves of Ra. You fast forward to the 1900s and your grave robbers,
God.
dude. Crumbling
God, Jake's
temples, grave goods. Yeah, we could.
Wow.
And curses.
Whoa, kind of gnarly, but I you're onto something.
Cool.
But
All right, guys, that's my 3. Those are my hidden gems.
Okay.
Find the connections.
I've got some ideas. This is hard though. I don't feel like I know it for sure at this point. Brendan,
do you
what,
think it's a mechanical
what
connection?
about you?
Is it mechanical?
Well, we got to guess first. We could guess.
That's what
You
I'm
want me
trying
to
to
tell
I'm
you? You want hints before you say anything?
we should
Brendan?
at least
I'm trying to
get.
work in the direction.
Do you want
I think it has to do with press your luck. Okay, all these games have a simple turn. They're all vaguely press your luck to some extent, and are built around a simple decision at the start, right? Stay or leave an Incan Gold. And Pirate Tales, do you put it in front of you?
Draw
do
a
you put it
card.
on the-
Or it's draw a card or take cards from an island.
Sure, okay. And then, or also in Priest of Ra, it's, take tiles or place tiles.
That was one.
This is very close.
That was one I was thinking too.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other one I was thinking is probably not right because it's less close than that. I was thinking something around like variable scoring potential. Like there's clearly like a tempo similarity, and that might just be related to them having push your luck, but like a tempo that can leave you out, like basically busting with diminishing
That is
returns.
true. That is true. You can sort of be out of a round, and one person can be left.
Right.
And that is true.
Well, it's like
That's a good connection.
in Pirate Tales, right? Well, even just like within the game, it's okay. I definitely want that island, but I'm going to wait for it to get bigger. But then somebody swoops it out from in front of you, and that's something
Yes.
that can kind of happen in all of these games as well.
That is, yeah, you're very right there. It isn't what I had thought of, but it's really close to what I thought, which is that you can be the last one in and you decide to keep going or not. And you might get that third candy in Pirate Tales, and that's bad. I do just want to make one note because I thought you would say push your luck. And you are right. But many games that are considered press your luck would not fit this and are maybe debatably not press your luck. Clank does not fit this theme. A Feast for Odin, debatably not press your luck, doesn't fit. Heat, Pedal to the Metal, no. Quacks, I wouldn't say so.
Can't stop.
Can't Stop, no, I don't think so.
It's almost like you're always the last person in and can't stop.
Yeah, you are. It's always that moment. Okay,
Cool.
I'll tell you. The thing that's going on here is one of my favorite mechanisms and shows up in a couple games I've worked on. It's in the Honey Buzz Fall Flavors expansion. It's in Santa's Workshop, which is that things pile up that incentivize you to get out. And it does tie exactly to what you're saying, Jake, about this tension between I want to get out while the getting's good, but if I stay, the gettings might get even better.
Well-timed
and I love
departures.
that just sort of, yeah, and it's like a natural auction, essentially. The game itself increases the price or the value of leaving. And I think that is a really beautiful and elegant mechanism.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great one. I wonder if any of our listeners are like, smacking their driving wheel like these idiots is so obvious.
I'm going to give that to Jake. I think he kind of nailed that one.
Nice. Awesome. The other cool thing about that mechanism too, Paul, is that it's not certain that the value will go up necessarily.
Correct.
Right? That's
Correct.
the important part. The kicker for the mechanism like that is there has to be that uncertainty. Really cool. Thanks for talking about the Priest of Ra. Also a game we haven't covered on the show, Ra. One we clearly need to cover.
Yeah, we probably should.
Oh my God.
Maybe
What an incredible
maybe you could come
design.
back on for that, Paul.
I love that.
Ra.
All right.
Okay.
Brendan, our last
My turn?
set of 3.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
So the first game I want to talk about is a game called Gravwell. Have either of you played Gravwell by Corey Young?
No, but I think I've seen it, but I
haven't-
don't think I've played it.
Yeah, I haven't played any of your games.
So
Don't ask
really?
again.
So Gravwell is a space-themed simultaneous choice game in which you all start sort of in the center of this board that's spiraling outwards, and you're racing to escape the gravity of this sort of black hole. So you're all going to, on your turn, play a card from your hand that's either going to have forward propulsion or backwards propulsion. So the trick with this is that you're going to move towards the closest ship next to you, sort of in this line, right? So Jake, if you're 4 spaces ahead of me and Paul is 2 spaces behind me, when my card is flipped, and if I played that I was moving forwards, I would move towards Paul however many spaces I moved because he's the closest ship to me, but he's actually behind me, so I'm going back, right? But we're all choosing when we're going to play our cards at the same time, simultaneous choice, and we flip them up, and then we resolve them all at the same time. So where the ships are might not, when I flip my card, might not actually be where they are when my card is resolved. So looking at the board, I have to guess, when am I going to be the one who gets to move? And how far are other people going to move when they're flipped? There's some smart design decisions in this game, like some neutral ships that are hanging out in the sort of course that you're trying to escape upon, so that you have other bodies in play that you can kind of move towards. And like I mentioned, cool cards that allow you to move towards or away from things that give you a little bit more agency. You're also potentially drafting cards from this face-up display, so you have a vague sense of what other people might play, but you don't really know. This is a light but really novel simultaneous choice game that I think punches way above its weight class. It was re-released from Renegade recently. So this is a great game.
Okay, I have questions here.
Yeah.
First of all, do you reveal in turn order?
You all flip them up simultaneously, and then you resolve them based on. It's been a while since I played, Paul, but there's letters on all the cards, and I believe you do them alphabetically. I can't remember perfectly.
Interesting.
But there's a mechanism in which there's uncertainty about the order in which you're going to be resolving.
Alphabetical is interesting. Typically, people go numbers, but that's kind of fun.
But you can't step on the toes of the spaces you're moving. So then you don't want 2 numbers on the cards, right?
I see. Well,
I believe that's how it works.
okay. I Have you played Get Bit? This sounds a little bit similar to Get Bit.
I haven't played Get Bit, but I do know of Get Bit, where you're trying to basically move, but you don't want to be last, but you don't want to be first.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if first is bad, but and I'm assuming here that like we all have the same cards. Is that true?
We're all pulling from the same pool, but we don't have the same cards necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've definitely played other games before that have this sort of similar mechanism where you're, predicting what the state of the board is going to be. Your
Mhm.
action takes place. Right, like what's the one that's like the one where it's like a western on a train, right? Where you're like kind of programming
Yeah.
your
Oh.
actions. You're like, this person's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
be there, and I'm gonna punch him, and then you're just like, turning the wrong way, punching air somewhere else.
Colt Express, right?
Colt Express.
Colt Express. That's the one.
Yeah, so familiar with that kind of mechanism where I think it could definitely like add some levity, and typically these are games that have funny reveals, right? You're moving the wrong way, you're trying to get out, and you're going down.
This was a Mensa Select in the year it was released in 2013, I believe.
Okay.
So there's some nice mind games going on too. It's fun to be able to sort of look at the board and say, like, do I know what Jake's going to go for, right?
It also reminds me a little bit of Flamme Rouge, in which we all reveal, and depending on where you are, maybe I can draft up to you a little bit, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
closing
totally.
peloton.
Same with Heat. Yeah,
definitely an element of caring what other people are going to do in a race.
Yeah, cool.
But in this race, you can go backwards. You can go backwards by a lot.
All right,
it's kind of fun. Okay, so cool.
That's going away from the Gravwell, which seems a little weird.
Well, you're trying to escape it, so you don't get sucked in.
All right,
yeah,
all right, that makes sense.
I mean, maybe you want to get sucked in, Paul, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't want to spend my
that's fair.
eternity in that Gravwell. Okay, so that was Gravwell by Corey Young. My next game is a game by one Uwe Rosenberg called Glass Road. Glass Road is a card-driven sort of economic game. Uwe Rosenberg, of course, really well known for games like Agricola and A Feast for Odin. But Glass Road is this sort of svelter card-driven game in which players are simultaneously choosing from a shared set of cards what actions they want to take. So there's actions that will allow you to say, in Glass Road, it's themed after this area of Germany in which they made lots of glass. So you're going to collect sand or brick, and you have this cool mechanism where there's dials where you're trying to move all of these resources up to track how much sand and how many bricks you've produced, kind of working towards these endgame scoring conditions that you can draft by playing the right cards at the right time. You also have a grid in front of you that has different buildings and resources, and you start with some forest tiles on it. So, for example, one of the cards you might play might be the woodcutter, which allows you to chop down one of those forests and gain some wood, which is maybe going to help you produce glass, which might help you get this endgame scoring off this certain building that you've drafted. So you all have a shared set of cards in this game, and you're essentially trying to guess what cards other people are going to play. If you're the only, I've played it most at 2-player. I really like it at 2. And in 2-player, if you're the only person who plays a card, you essentially get a benefit to playing that card, like a bonus action that you get to take. Otherwise, if both of you played the card, you just get to do this lighter version. You pick one of those 2 modes. So this is a game where when your opponent, you're trying to guess which direction your opponent's going and maybe run in a different direction, or maybe cut them off on one of the cards that they're playing and then play a couple unique ones yourself. So that's Glass Road.
Sounds really cool. I like how it's based on like a certain region in Germany, which reminds me of Findorf, another game based on a certain region in Germany. Which a lot of people would recognize as one of the best games of all time.
Right.
I think there's only 3 games ever made better than Findorf.
Do you have any questions about Glass Road, Uwe Rosenberg's?
No, but I will say it reminds me. Well, maybe I'm going to wait on this comment a little bit because I think I'm sniffing a trail here, and I don't want to. I don't want to say anything just yet.
Yeah, let's do the last one, and then we're gonna nail it.
Okay, awesome. So, Coal Baron is my third and final hidden gem, and this is not a pun. It is not because coal is compressed into diamonds and la 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 la. But this is a game designed by Kramer and Kiesling, and it's a worker placement game. And the novel twist on this worker placement game is this game also kind of similarly to Glass Road has some recipe fulfillment. So you're trying to run a coal mine. You have a board in front of you that you all share, and you have to move this elevator shaft up and down to collect coal of different colors. The theme falls apart a little bit. Maybe it's different densities. I don't know. Maybe it's actually coal and gold, and there's also brown. Maybe, the qualities of coal.
That good coal,
It's potential. Yeah, good coal. Good. Okay, coal. Yeah, Cole, I wouldn't write home about. But anyway, you're trying to move your sort of elevator up and down. So one of the worker placement spots you can go to is moving this elevator shaft. You can only hold so many different colors of coal, these cubes in your elevator. So you're trying to, there's a timing puzzle going on of when you're trying to move up and down. Another worker placement spot you're going to is these recipes that you're trying to get. All these different types of coal are delivered by different types of carriages, but you might match some of those carriages so you can deliver on these recipes if you overlap the type of carriage that delivers them. So there's like a horse-drawn one. So maybe you stack up 3 of those recipes and you go to the recipe delivery spot and you deliver really efficiently all at once. Or maybe you take a path that's a little more efficient in the recipes, but you have to spend more time delivering. And then there's money involved as well. But the real twist of this game, if there is a twist, it's a pretty standard worker placement game, is that whenever you go to a space, the cost of that space is all of the workers previously on that space. So the first time anyone goes to a space, the cost is 1. The second time in a round, anyone goes to that space, the cost is 2, and so on. So there's this escalation, this building up of pricing. So the pricing of going to locations is organically driven by the actions that players want to do in that round. So if a bunch of people are getting coal in a certain round, maybe you would be better served by going and getting some contracts for coal and then collecting your coal in a later round. Or if you know everyone's going to deliver in the next round and it's going to be really expensive, maybe you want to do that now. Or maybe you know everyone's waiting to deliver, so even though you don't have anything that good to deliver, you just deliver now to make it more expensive for everyone else. So there's a little bit of that going on, trying to navigate the puzzle at the same time as everyone else. This game was recently re-released in a nice Kickstarted version. I played the original version, which had demure art. It was released in 2013. Kind of a dark, sad game, but I think it's fun. It's a breezy little worker placement game from Wolfgang Creator. Yeah, I think so. I think it's fairly breezy. It's lighter than you would expect. This is the second worker placement game I ever played following Keyflower, and it sort of tipped me off to, this is a fun mechanism. What? Why are you laughing, Paul?
Compared to Keyflower, I bet it's pretty breezy.
Yeah. This is true.
There's something about like Coal Baron just sounds like the name of like the heaviest game you've ever heard of.
Well, you look at the so-called demure art, and this thing does look kind of, I don't know. I like your description of it, though. It sounds pretty.
So
it's neat.
On your turn, you're obviously taking a action with your worker because it's worker placement. But like, how are you decide? Is that like a simultaneous thing where everybody's picking at the same time?
Just take turns.
No, it's
you
not,
just
Jake.
take turns, Jake.
Wait a second.
He really zigged us with this one.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I was like,
oh my God.
Yeah, I thought he had completely tipped his hand earlier when he said the word simultaneous when he's talking about Glass Road.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was going with it too. One thing I want to just talk about before we try to take our guesses, this mine shaft, this elevator reminded me of Gold West. Have either of you ever played Gold West?
I've never played Gold West.
I think we played it on Board Game Arena together, but maybe
you don't say.
But maybe it was like the roll and write version.
Oh, there is that too.
I think that's the one we played. Yeah.
Well, Gold West, I just want to throw out here, is an awesome design. And I think there is a new edition coming. And you do this Mancala of resources up the mine shaft, and really awesome. So check that out.
Vincent Dutray art? I'm in.
On the new one, is it?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. Well, geez.
I mean, I've an idea. I've got a guess.
I don't even remember what my question was now, and that's so foolish of me. Yeah, what are you thinking, Jake?
Well, I think like if it isn't that there's simultaneous action taking.
It isn't.
There are no simultaneous actions in Coal Baron.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, unless Brendan's like, that's a lie. It's like 2 truths and a lie.
It's not that would be fun.
Just
they're play a different game.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think the third is a red herring. No, but I'm thinking if it's not simultaneous action, it's like that you have to strongly consider the actions of other players.
That's pretty much where I am as well. Is just that he sort of discussed timing in each case. There's I think an interesting timing puzzle.
He said like when he was talking about Coal Baron, he didn't use the word simultaneous, but he's like he used the phrase at the same time.
Yeah, he did.
He did. So I think that whatever he's thinking about when he at that moment of the game, that's the connection.
So I will say that you guys are wrong.
No.
He's sort of ramped up in difficulty,
Yeah,
I
you
feel like.
freaking
Yeah.
dude. Did you throw us off on purpose by two
With a red herring?
No, with two
Yeah.
simultaneous action games just to get us
Yeah.
completely off the scent.
Okay, what did we have? We had Gravwell.
Yep, released in
had
2013
Glass
with a new
Road,
edition, Glass Road.
And this game
Released in
is
2013.
Coal Baron. If it's
Released in
Gold
2013.
Baron, then they could all be G's, but it's not.
The thing about Gravwell is it just seems so slight. Like, what is there in
Yeah.
that game besides simultaneous action and trying to
Okay, wait.
predict the movements of your opponents?
In Glass Road, is there a track that you move up?
No,
Ugh.
there are the dials do move. No, that is not.
No, that's not
That's not what it is.
Is it a mechanical connection?
It is not a mechanical connection.
Okay.
Oh well.
Is it that they're all? Is it German designers?
They are not all German designers.
Okay.
I don't believe so. I think Corey Young is American.
That'd be hilarious if I was really close when I said that. Reminds me of Findorf.
I had a thought. Okay, I was gonna guess a year.
Past,
I don't
present,
know.
future.
Oop,
No?
it's not really a thing.
Okay, wait.
No, I got nothing.
Give us a hint.
Okay, it was timing related, but not mechanically timing related.
Okay, all of these games have or are getting second editions.
It's close. They're all old enough that some of them have had second editions.
Gravwell does for sure, and
Yes.
I think Gold Baron
Gold
does.
Baron does.
And I think Glass Road is coming.
Is it?
I don't know.
That's not the connection.
Maybe it could. Okay. All right.
You stumped
Should I
us. You
we're
stumped us.
stumped.
Yeah.
I did just say it while we were guessing, which is that all these games came out in 2013.
No, okay, that's the issue. That's what I thought. That's what I thought there at the end. But I looked it up, and Gravwell second edition was 2021. So that's what threw me.
They originally came out in 2013.
Okay,
Damn
well
you,
done.
Brendan.
Bravo.
You said that, right? You said it.
I did say it.
Okay, good.
I snuck it in.
Because listeners would be mad if you didn't sneak it in there.
I snuck it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Well done.
That was fun. We gotta do this. Yeah, I'll be interested to see what kind of feedback we get on this episode because that's kind of a fun, I think, format for future episodes. You know,
Yeah,
we
I
get
like
to talk
that.
about cool games that we're excited about and also play a little game alongside it. So hopefully people listening along had some fun guessing along with us.
And I always love getting to spend an hour with the designer of Honeybuzz, Genotype, and other games.
Yeah,
So,
do you have anything
Paul,
else
thank
you
you so
can
much.
plug for us right now?
Yeah, do you want to
Let me
plug anything, Paul?
Let me chill a little bit, guys. Honeybuzz Fall Flavors, which is the big expansion to Honeybuzz, is at fulfillment and will start shipping soonish this month. I don't know exact details. Also, going to Kickstarter tomorrow or a little bit past when this airs. We have the Merchants of the Dark Road Secret Villages expansion. We have Santa's Workshop Deluxe Edition, which is a game I worked on and really like, and does feature the mechanism I talked about. And we have Story Puzzles, which are a really cool new product we're launching. It's basically like the cover of Santa's Workshop, and when you complete the puzzle, there are sort of altered art in certain places, and if you can find the differences, you open these envelopes, and you get a little card with a story on it about what's going on in the world of the North Pole, and you get some alternate art game components that you can mix into your plays of Santa's Workshop. So all three of those things on Kickstarter at the time of airing, coming live June 4th.
Story Puzzles sounds awesome.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And then we have one for merchants as well, and cool, promos available and stuff. We're really excited about
Honeybuzz
Nice.
Story Puzzle when?
Sometime soon. We'll got to see how these things do,
Yeah, cool. That's awesome.
That's really neat. Yeah.
All right. Well, check those out over at Elf Creek Games. And
I have one last thing.
okay.
Oh, yeah.
I almost threw 3 folk games at you, but then I decided that would just be silly because it's a board game podcast. So I'm going to ask you both really quickly if you've ever played this folk game. That's what I'm calling it. So rock, paper, scissors, except you
Yep.
draw a track. So there's a rock track, a paper track, and a scissors track. And when you win, you play rock, paper, scissors like normal. When you win, you move your marker, a marker that's between the two of you, on your track towards you, right? So if, Paul, we're playing, I throw a rock comes towards me. To win the game, I have to win on a track that's already towards me. Does that make sense?
No, so you have to
Okay.
win with rock twice.
Twice, before losing with it. This is so fun. It is.
That's it? It's just like 3 spaces on the track?
Yeah, and it's so fun. It's
Wow.
the
No,
best.
I've not heard of that.
Oh, You should like.
Is it 2-player only, or you could play with you could play with 3 or more?
How are you gonna play with 3, Jake? How are you gonna play rock paper scissors with 3?
A tournament.
What are you talking about? You guys don't do rock.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you do rock paper scissors with both hands, so you're competing.
Okay.
Have you guys done?
Yeah,
None of you guys have done that before.
With
that does
both
make
hands?
sense.
So like
It's
last
just
place against.
simultaneously 3
Yeah,
games.
so I'm competing with the person on my right with my right hand, and the person on my left with my left hand.
It's like
Well, yeah,
7
just
Wonders rock paper scissors.
Put tracks between all of you and just let it go crazy. Yeah. Now we're really
Interesting.
talking.
All right,
No, it's
I was,
really fun.
I was gonna suggest we do it now, but I don't think that will work. You could also
Well
just
worth your
do
time.
like you have to win. You have to beat both people. It might take a long time, but
It's true.
Mm.
I'm not being facetious though, but I think that this is actually a fun way to spend 10, 15 minutes.
yeah, it sounds like a cool mechanism that could be incorporated
Used
into
in
a
the
board
Euro
game. Yeah.
That's what my
I have a little something to share, but I'll wait till we're off air, and then your Patreons can get a little.
Ooh.
Okay.
Sneak.
All right, cool.
Nice.
Well, thanks so much to everyone for listening to this week's episode of Decision Space. You can find out more on decisionspacepodcast.com, including about our design
Decision
jam,
Space Jam.
number 2. And as always, join us on the Discord for even deeper conversations about this episode. As always, we want to thank Hembry for intro and outro music. Reach out, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Close enough.